All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, the New York Giants are a day late and a dollar short, as far as I'm concerned, as today they finally made the decision to move on from defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. This season, the Giants have lost 5 games in which they had leads of 10 points or more in the fourth quarter. So, yesterday's most recent fourth quarter meltdown against the Detroit Lions left Giants interim head coach Mike Kafka with no choice but to move on from Bowen. But to me, the move is still too little, too late. I say this because, in all honesty, Shane Bowen should have been relieved of his duties following the Giants' meltdown last month versus the Denver Broncos, as the Giants' defense under him has been abysmal, to say the least. New York is averaging, or allowing rather, more than 157 yards per game on the ground this season, which is by far dead last in the National Football League. And yesterday, we saw Lions running back Jameer Gibbs gouge the Giants defense for 219 yards on just 15 carries. That's a Madden type performance right there. All right. Kafka claimed that firing Bowen was his decision, and I'll take him for his word on that. And it was his decision alone. As you know what, he went back, studied the tape, studied the embattled defensive coordinator's entire body of work this season, as there's no way around it. The Giants have been horrible defensively. Okay, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, especially when it matters the most in clutch time in the fourth quarter. Now, Kafka's predecessor, okay, and the now departed Brian Daboll, was not going to move on from Shane Bowen. Why? Because Shane Bowen was Brian Daboll's handpicked defensive coordinator after he decided to part with Wink Martindale following the 2023 season. Why he parted with Wink Martindale, I don't know. But nonetheless, the fact that Brian Daboll was stubborn and the fact that Brian Daboll stuck with Shane Bowen as long as he did helped to end his tenure as the head coach in New York. And as the Giants have now moved on from their head coach, as well as their defensive coordinator coming into this season, it's not even Thanksgiving yet, okay? But if I am the Giants, why stop there? Like I said prior to the firing of Daboll, and of course during the announcement of the firing of Daboll, that the Giants need to clean house. And as the losses are continuing to mount for one of the oldest NFL's franchises, it's only strengthening my point. Like I said before, okay, and you see it, the Giants are suffering from bad franchise syndrome. They simply don't know how to win games. They don't know how to close out. And you are seeing it on a Sunday by Sunday basis. This is why they continuously find ways to lose these games. This organization is in dire need of a culture change. And the people who are currently calling the shots for this team are not capable of executing it. I've said this before and I will say it again. There is no way, and I mean absolutely no way, that the Giants organization, Giants management, Giants ownership can see what is going on right now under the watch or stewardship, you will, of current general manager Joe Shane. And there is no way that they can sit back and say, hey, you know what? This guy should allowed to be could be allowed or should be allowed to soldier on as the GM of this team, as this is his mess. I'll ask you, like I'll ask anybody else, how many impact players since Joe Shane has been the general manager of the Giants has he drafted? Okay, how many impact players that Joe Shane inherited has he allowed to let go, and they've gone on and continue to be impact players for other teams? Okay, I'll leave it there. But I'll tell you like this: if I were Giants co-owner John Mara, I would have met Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, and Shane Bowen at baggage claim when they arrived back, okay, from Denver following that meltdown. All of them would have been out of jobs. There's no reason why Joe Shane should still be around. Okay. Now, I'll tell you like this: Mike Kafka had no choice but to move on from Shane Bowen because Mike Kafka is possibly in the mix to either be the Giants head coach for next season or possibly be retained as the team's offensive coordinator. Potentially. We don't know. But if you're Shane Bowen, you have to go out there and audition. And you can, pardon me, if you're Mike Kafka, and you cannot leave things to chance, especially with Shane Bowen and the way that this defense has performed for this team this season. However, uh, Mike Kafka is no milk drinking choir boy in this equation. And I say this because he can easily, and he should easily be second guessed for some of his decision making yesterday. Did he put the Giants in a position to win? Absolutely. But again, the fourth quarter execution. New York was up 27-24 late in this contest. And I understand the aggression. It's a goal, fourth and goal to goal situation. And you feel like, hey, we get a touchdown, we can ice this game. Some questionable play calling when the Giants were in the red zone. That has been their calling card all season long, and it showed up once again yesterday. And I think by the fact that the Giants went for it and didn't get it, um, they left points on the board clearly. But you get a field goal there, you go up 30-24. Now, instead of the Lions having to get just in the field goal range, you force them with no timeouts to have to drive the length of the field and get a touchdown. Granted, an extra point could beat you there. I understand it. However, in this new age of the NFL, with the extra points being pushed back, it is not a guarantee, even indoors, like it was for the Lions at Ford Field. On top of that, it's one of those where in this current National Football League, where you don't have to be that close to kick a field goal. And of course, yesterday's game time field goal for the Lions was from 59 yards out. And of course, if there has ever been a franchise, I don't think there's been a franchise that's been more snake bit by long field goals over the last decade, whether, and I say long field goals, anything 50 yards and up. Okay, some of them were 60 plus yard kicks that either lost the game for them, sent it to overtime. It's been the Giants, okay, and that was once again the case yesterday. But if you're Shane Bowen, you're putting your trust in a defense that has shown that they can't stop people in the clutch to keep the Lions out of field goal range. So that's why I think, I question what he did right there. Not only that, we saw New York win the coin toss heading into overtime, and the Giants gave the Lions the football. And of course, on the very first play of overtime, Jameer Gibbs took it to the house. So you're entrusting a defense that has not shown that they could stop the Lions all game long. You're entrusting a defense that was out of gas because they were just on the field so much in the fourth quarter, especially on the final drive of the fourth quarter, which sent the game into overtime. And now you want to put them right back out there. And of course, they got gashed, and the rest is history. So again, I'm putting that on Mike Kafka. This is why I say the Giants need to clean house. New regime, new coaches, new front office staff, the whole kit and caboodle. They cannot be retained. Okay, you have to start fresh. Everybody involved in this regime, coaching wise, none of them should be allowed to exit to turn off of exit 16W on the Jersey Turnpike and enter MetLife Stadium when the season is done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We now know about the deleted social media post from injured Giants wide receiver Malik Neighbors. He's frustrated just watching it, and if he's frustrated just watching it, how do you think that the players feel? It's one of those where some people might want to make Shane Bowen out now to be a martyr. Okay, I get it, but Joe Shane is still the guy who put this defense together. And you look at it, Brian Burns is having a phenomenal season for the Giants. 13 sacks. He's definitely going to be a Pro Bowl selection. But how many of those sacks have come in the fourth quarter when it's money time? And speaking of the 13 sacks that Brian Burns has, the entire defense, sans Brian Burns, only has 13 sacks. And the rushing the passer, getting to the quarterback, sacking the quarterback was supposed to be a strength of this team this season. That is not the case. They didn't stop anybody running the football during the preseason. And of course, that has only cascaded to an even bigger problem so far this season. To give you an idea about it, you look at the dynamic running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, the former New York Giants running back who Joe Shane allowed to walk out of the door after the 2023 season. I'm talking about Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has struggled running the football for the bulk of this year. Clearly, his biggest game of the season, the rematch with the New York Giants. And we've seen it too often that running backs who have been struggling to run the football have gotten healthy and continue to get healthy and will continue to get healthy against this porous Giants defense. Now, of course, changing the defensive coordinator, it's going to provide a spark. Bottom line is guys are going to, sit up and prop up this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, like I said, there definitely needs to be a new regime. You look at the Giants now; they're 2-10. I know that their fan base is tired of seeing a team that's out of it. The Giants, of course, were the first team, or are the first team, to have been officially eliminated from postseason contention this season. Albeit anybody who's watched the Giants play knew that they were eliminated weeks ago. So now you've got 5 games left, and I'm not going to say that you could salvage anything at this point because you really can't. All right. But nonetheless, you look at this thing. You got the Patriots on the road Monday night. They're rolling right now. They've won their last 9. They have the best record in football. Okay. Then you finally get your bye week. Okay. But then those last 4 coming out of the bye, you get Washington at home. They've struggled. You get the Vikings at home. Okay. They're struggling. You're on the road against the Raiders. And I know that the last 2 weeks of the season, it's all about, flexing games for week 17 and 18 in the NFL. Honestly, you can flex that game to 9 a.m. Wednesday morning that week, okay? Because nobody, that's going to be a friends and family game right there. Nobody's going to pay attention to that. But that game is more than likely going to determine draft positioning because the Raiders and Giants are 2 of the worst teams in the National Football League. And then after that, we see the Giants finish at home against the Dallas Cowboys. So 3 out of their last 4 are at home after facing a brutal schedule this season, which is very alarming due to the fact that the Giants were a 3-14 team last year. But nonetheless, I guarantee you're going to see the planes flying over MetLife Stadium for the last couple of games. And it's one of those where John Mara talked about the fans in the past and talking about paying attention to what they're doing, this, that, and the third. Well, guess what? If the folks continue to stop showing up in MetLife Stadium, if the planes are flying over, and if you have another situation where we're talking about the Giants losing 13, 14, or possibly 15 games at this point, okay, which would clearly be a franchise worst right off of the franchise worst 14 losses last season, he's going to have to make changes. And like I said before earlier, not to sound like a broken record, but there is no way that you can allow Joe Shane to come back for 2022 and be the general manager for this team. You'll have anarchy on your hands as far as your fan base goes if you are John Mara and the Giants because they're past the point of saying enough is enough. They want somebody to fix this mess, and you can't expect Joe Shane to go out there and fix the mess when he's been part of the reason why the mess has gotten to this point. There's young talent on this Giants team. Make no mistake about it. You're hopeful that you can get a healthy Malik Neighbors back at wide receiver next season. You're hopeful that you can get a healthy Cam Scatterboo back at running back next year. The offensive line, for once in a long time, has shown improvement for this team. I would imagine for the rest of the season, given the Giants' station on things, that they're probably going to approach the rookie quarterback Jackson Dart with kid gloves for the rest of the year, trying to put the bubble wrap on him and make sure that he's healthy going forward. But I would expect a healthy dose of upgrading the defense over the offseason, whether it's through the draft, free agency, you name it. And then on top of that, Joe Shane, who was brought in for his strength as being a cap guy, guess what? The Giants are not going to have a lot of cap space going into next season. So they need to figure this thing out via the draft. It's a mess, but it's somewhat of a fixable mess for the Giants. They just need the right people calling the shots. And I think, hey, the most recent team that the Giants are going to have to face, the New England Patriots, next Monday night. I think they are a shining example of what can happen when you get the right people or right person as your head coach and the right person to lead your team, because the Patriots have been god awful for several years themselves. They got Mike Vrabel in that building. Things have turned around. You look at Dave Canales with the formerly of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their offensive coordinator, now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And Carolina had been terrible. Bryce Young looked like he was going to be a bust as a number one overall pick at quarterback. And this Carolina Panthers team under Dave Canales is looking different, and they're showing hope. My point is this: the right people in your organization can fix the problems. And this is why I think it's so important this offseason for John Mara to go out there and find the right person to be general manager. Joe Shane is not it. And allow that person to go out there and find the right head coach. Or maybe you bring in an experienced head coach who has some cachet, and he'll say, you know what, I'm going to go out there and bring in my fella to be the GM for this organization. But again, like I said before, Shane Bowen's gone. Brian Daboll is gone. The Giants cannot stop there. It's beyond the point that you have to clean house, back up the truck, do whatever you have to do, use whatever metaphor or phrase that you need to use to describe it. But the bottom line is, these changes that we've seen for the Giants, they can't stop there. It's a total house cleaning. Need to go back and watch Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman when he channeled his inner Joe Clark and basically cleaned house at his high school. That's what the Giants need to do. Clean house. They need to put people in that organization that expect to win, that want to win. And the bottom line is, too many people right now around that organization are expecting to lose. This is why the Giants are in the situation that they are in. It's fixable, but it's not fixable by the people who are currently running things for them. So let's see what more changes are in store for the New York Football Giants. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button, as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, be sure to check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it'll be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, and you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you are on Facebook, definitely be sure to check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.